Good morning, everybody. Afternoon. I'm Sarah Nisbet. I work for URSA. Today we're going to be talking to you about some of our experiences that we've both had as sort of project managers and project officers of national projects that sort of feature distributed and collaborative teams. So what are these teams and what do we sort of mean by those terms? So for us, and for me, when we talk about distributed teams, we're sort of talking about teams that the members of the team are distributed nationally. So the project that I'm currently working on, we've got project members who are in Adelaide, myself, Canberra, Queensland, and Victoria. So definitely distributed nationally in that example, but I think there's some tips here that you might want to employ if you have a team that's sort of even more distributed, maybe just down the hall or in different buildings. Some of the challenges that we've come across can occur even when you're not really that far apart. And when we talk about collaboration, we sort of mean multidisciplinary. So we're talking about mixed skill sets. So, you know, I have a marketing background, Hamish has a project, IT, ecology background, you know. We've got BAs, software developers, all trying to work together in a team from different backgrounds, different cultures and different ways of working. So how do you make that work? Okay. Okay, so when might you need a distributed team? So we thought this talk might be useful to a few of you because this is kind of becoming increasingly common. You're probably noticing that you might be collaborating with people from different institutions and different states. And generally, we've required a distributed team when we've sort of been working on something that's nationally significant or an operated project where the outputs are sort of need to be delivered nationally. When there's a lack of specialised skills, so particularly in the project that I'm working on, the skills that we needed were in Queensland. The institutions might be disparate and you also want that local connection, so that's really good if you want to enter, say, a local or regional area, that you've got that local expertise, the connections and that sort of thing. And also, you know, in the modern day, people might want to work from home. Okay, so what are some of the challenges? Okay, so, yeah, opposites attract. What do you do when your team is multidisciplinary and they've, you know, you've got a developer that's never worked with a marketer before? How do you sort of manage that? How do you go about sort of creating that culture where everybody feels like, you know, they're not being thought of as, you know, a lesser part of the project and everybody's an equal and you sort of can play things together. And the other issue is you're not their boss. And this is important for two reasons. One, because, you know, if you can't really tell one of your people that has a line manager in another state off if they don't do something that's not your role. So how do you make sure that you get the best out of someone without having that sort of, you know, you're fired approach, which hopefully people don't use anyway. But then the other issue is the inverse of that, which is you do need a good relationship with that line manager, and you don't want to get into a situation where that line manager feels you're overstepping the mark with their employee. You really have to be mindful and remember that too. So those are some of the challenges. I'll move on to learnings.
Oh, right. Thank you, Sarah. Yeah. And so, yes, opposites attract. Sarah's from a marketing background and I'm from an IT kind of health background. And when we were actually starting to do this kind of presentation, Sarah was saying, well, let's just have a couple of stories and we send some pictures and we'll tell the actual kind of story really quite nicely. But me from my IT background says, no, we need a framework here and we need to put that down. So what I'm actually going to talk about now is a bit of the work that we've actually been doing within the national and international space within e-research, and really the teams that we've formed and how we've kind of managed them and what of our overarching paradigm about how we actually kind of work with them. Sarah and I have been working within health, within humanities and social sciences, ecology and user support Over the last 2.5 years, these projects have equated to about $7 million worth of actual people spend, not a lot of infrastructural capital expenditure on that. So it is really about people. It's really about how they work together and how we actually maximise that benefit and how we actually kind of communicate when we're not all in the same room. The projects that we've been working on have been both in a project sense, so very defined kind of clear boundary, but also operational kind of projects as well. So in regards to the user support project that I'll be talking about later on, that's about actually having people in an operational perspective providing Tier 1 to Tier 3 support for users of the research, or the National Research Cloud in Australia. Whilst the ecology, health and house projects are much more defined and time-boxed activities. So in terms of a framework, really we kind of sat down here and said, well, there's a lot of literature, there is actually a lot of ways to actually kind of think about it, but actually what, for this 20-minute talk or this 10-minute talk, what are the key elements that we like to actually instill in our team, and what are those paradigms that we want to kind of take forward when we're setting it up as such? And we came up with 4 major ideas or concepts. One is setting the culture. So really what, you're setting up a new team which is cross-institutional. You're not generally borrowing the culture from that institution. Generally, you're a lead agent, or you're actually trying to make that kind of culture, and it's merger cultures from the people that are, from the people that are making your team. It's performance as well, so it's like, how do you actually share that performance of individual team members? How do you actually, provide them autonomy and their respect? And actually, you're getting these people in because they've got diverse skills. But it's also sometimes easier to hide in a disparate team. But actually, I don't actually know. Maybe it's actually easier to hide down on the corridor as well. So, so what are those elements? Now we're all blessed with enabling technologies that makes it easier to do this work. So we've got instant messaging, we've got video collaboration. I don't know about you, but I spend about 4 to 5 hours a day on video conferencing. So it's a bit of a de-rigger tool. And then also governance. What are the governance structures? What are the actual kind of project sponsors? What are the institutions? What is that background that is needed actually to make these kind of teams successful? So setting the culture, I think we need to, a lot of these kind of projects start with good ideas, and they start with good intentions. And the idea is that, we chuck all these kind of people into the same place and they work together nicely and neatly. That doesn't always actually happen. And I think if you're actually starting a team, you really need to be defining that kind of culture. What do you actually want out of this, and how do you actually kind of want it to work? And where we've really kind of found it's like that culture needs to be a safe space. So the opportunity to actually kind of walk and talk to each other is not always as readily available if you're co-located in a physical location. But you're working towards a common goal and a shared goal. So you're really wanting to define a culture there that it's safe, that you can bring up issues, you can problem solve together, you've got shared ownership of your project, and that gets buy-in from everyone on the project. You really, really want to respect the autonomy of the individuals. You brought them on for a particular reason. And sometimes also you inherit individuals as well. And sometimes you inherit individuals because of they're not particularly well in that institution, or for some other reason it's not actually their decision. So you really want to actually show that respect back towards them. And also I think the major kind of bit with setting the culture is you want to encourage ad hoc social interaction, which is actually quite difficult to do in a remote kind of setting. So it's about being fun, It's about playing around. Yeah. In one of our kind of previous projects, this kind of happened kind of ad hocly, but these are some of the pictures of the dogs of the people that were poodles are actually quite popular, actually. So yeah, and that's is that your dog?
That's my dog watching the television.
Right. Yeah. It's not
He's watching 101 Dalmatians.
Yes. Okay. Do you like it or not? Yeah. Okay. So it's these kind of little games. This is like sharing these kind of snippets and vignettes between each other that actually starts to form that social interaction, and allows you, when you've got an issue, to pop up and say, hey, I don't know how this is kind of working, and being comfortable in that kind of space as well.
Yeah, I don't think anybody sets out to create a bad culture. It's just sort of making that time for yourself as the project manager to think about what type of culture you want this project team to have, and thinking what strategies can I kind of employ to do that. And some of these things are just silly and fun ways of, you know, bringing everybody together across a shared interest.
Yep. Okay, and performance, it's about metrics here to actually encourage, though, individual accountability. So you're actually contributing to the team, people know what you're actually doing, and having mechanisms there to actually have that available. There is a competitive aspect as well with this, between institutions and within the team. It usually encourages performance, and I once again kind of stress the shared goals and visions. This is from a project that we did within the Biodiversity and Climate Change Virtual Lab. It was about a $4 million kind of project over 3 years. And this was actually about showcasing success and getting kind of the team really involved in this. This is a poster that went out to all the team members, but what we actually kind of see here, it looks like it's co-located, but we've got a laptop there. On this side, we've got another laptop, and we've got an iPad. And so people are actually joining into these meetings every day and communicating. Enabling technologies. Would you like to talk about that?
Yeah, so it's very hard to have a distributed team without technology. You know, the video conferencing and collaboration software have definitely made a massive difference. And I've got some little photos there of the types of, the way we sort of have our weekly meetings, daily meetings, catch-ups, you know, and you can even, you know, we were talking about culture, you can even create a bit of a culture within these systems, you know. It's nice when you've got a national team to ask her, what's the weather like, you know? And, you know, the Tasmanians suffer more than the people from Queensland. But it's a really nice way of getting to know each other, seeing each other's faces. The collaboration software, so often our preferred system is Google Docs. It's just simple and easy to use, and a lot of institutions actually have it as their system anyway. And that's really great for being able to track, you know, shared milestones and project documentation and that sort of thing, which sort of keeps everybody on track and knowing what everybody's up to. But the last one is planes, because the technology is great, but the face-to-face element is still really, really critical. And if there is the budget in there to make it work, I would really suggest getting together in person as frequently as you can.
Thank you. And also governance. So you've got a cross-institutional kind of team coming together. You really need the buy-in from that institution to support this. And that's both in terms of, you know, meeting up in locations as such. It's about ensuring that bureaucracy is kind of removed from these projects. I think that is a very important element. It's also that we're not imposing the institution's culture onto this actual team. Let that kind of form by itself. I think that's a particularly important thing. And that can be in very practical kind of senses as well. Like, you know, what is the tool that you're going to use? You know, tools that are available for institution and collaboration institutions don't always work across institutions very easily. And so you have to actually kind of be fairly flexible in those regards there. Also, I think about within the institution, it's about this governance community going, when is an institution actually not particularly pulling its weight, and having a mechanism there also to actually explain when that doesn't happen, or to actually raise that when it doesn't happen. So it's not always the individual in that team that's actually the factor to a problem as such. I'll just actually kind of just switch to, this is just a very simple kind of reporting mechanism that we were doing for that user support project that I was talking about in operations. And whilst up here I've only got like nodes as such, that's been obfuscated so we're not incriminating anyone as such. But these are the statistics that would go back to the governing board of this cross-institutional kind of project. So everyone could see who was pulling their weight and who wasn't. And then that line manager or that person can actually direct more attention to that. But it's really about openness, it's about transparency, it's about not hiding in the space. Over to Sarah.
Yeah, so that's sort of a summary of the framework and some of the key things to sort of think about at the start of when you're developing your team. So sort of more into the helpful tips and tricks now, I guess. So what do you need in your toolkit to make sure you've got a successful, distributed, collaborative team? My number one tip would be have a travel budget. That makes all the difference. You know, it's really fantastic to get the opportunity to meet together when and if you can. So that picture in the last slide was actually a picture of the Cultures and Community Advisory Board meeting that was held in Melbourne, and that was a really good opportunity to get people together and have those meetings and add sort of value onto that meeting. This THETA conference is a fabulous example. We've got, you know, BA, sort of technical advisory board chair, team member, you know, in the room here, sort of building a team, a supportive culture, you know, it's really good. What else do you need? Video conferencing software. We use Zoom all the time, multiple times a day. Hamish said he's in it 5 hours a day. He should be in the promotional videos. You need a shared documentation hub. Yeah, get yourself a Google Docs or a SharePoint if you can. Just something that works across all the institutions that you're collaborating with. I think if you've got one institution that can't access something, you're going to struggle, and that individual team member will probably find it hard. You need to be able to delegate, and you need to be able to foster a shared ownership of the project with the team. So I wouldn't suggest having a micromanaging approach to these types of things. You know, you're bringing in that external expertise generally because they're specialised and they know what they're doing and they want to do a good job, and you sort of need to foster that. And yeah, like we've said, set the expectations clearly. Hey, guys, welcome to this team. We're going to achieve this and it's going to be great, you know. It's just saying that, not, oh, welcome to this cultures and community project, probably going to fail. So how might you set one up? So getting started, generally I like to kick things off with a virtual meeting first, just to sort of get everybody in the same room, set some expectations about the milestones and the deliverables of the project, you know, what sort of culture you want to embody, and then use that as an opportunity to raise the planning for a face-to-face kick-off meeting and start to gather people's availability. After that, establish a regular communication meetings, so high-frequency virtual meetings. So the CNC project meets for an hour, so normally an hour and a half, because we're so good, every Friday, and that's really good. Communication is really important, those shared documentation spaces. Keep meetings and minutes of the meetings you do have. They're really good to go back on, and it's also a fantastic copy of what you've done and the activity that you've had back to your funding body as well. Have a shared methodology, and in your team building, just sort of, encourage that independence and that individual thought, and also encourage the team members to meet regularly without you. You know, it's a really nice way of them sort of problem solving and bringing something back to you that they can be proud of, and that's something that I've enjoyed when I've been on the other side of things as a team member. You know, it's being thought of as an expert in that particular space and working collaboratively with someone you might not have worked with before to achieve a new outcome.
No, you're more.
Maybe we could do this together. So, what can go wrong? So, I think,
I can, sure, I can do it. What can go wrong? Well, I suppose, like, I think we're kind of touched on a lot of these kind of questions. Yeah. Well, you can work collaboratively as a team here, as we're doing at the moment, like hand off responsibility to someone else, you know. And, I think the major issues with troubleshooting within just, collaborative teams and disparate kind of teams is really that communication kind of focus, and not being able to, I don't know, I've never actually really kind of wanted to actually line manage per se, but like having a shared ownership in those goals kind of thing, and when they get bit of help.
Yeah, I was going to say something here about the nature of a collaborative distributed team feels a bit different to your actual team that you line manage yourself, in a sense. So you do feel probably differently about that distributed team. So it's almost easier to sort of be, to enable that independence. But yeah, I think, what happens. You basically, some of these things are pretty obvious. You need good communication with the team. When things go wrong, you want that communication channel and that good relationship with the line manager that I mentioned earlier. They're not your staff, and you have to be very conscious of that. And if you do, then you can get a really good outcome, I think. The performance issue, like Hamish demonstrated before, it's really important that that's visible to the whole project team, and it's visible to the advisory and governance boards. I think some people can get a bit funny about the amount of stuff that they share, that if they share it, they'll sort of be caught out or that sort of thing. In my experience, the more communication, the better. So, we have our weekly catch-ups. Every month I send a project update to the advisory board and the technical advisory board, and just make sure everybody's across everything that we're doing, so there's no secrets or secret squirrel business or anything like that. It's all very open and transparent. And if your project allows you to do that, I would encourage you to take that approach too. And the governance issue, your favourite topic?
No, it's not my favourite topic, but that there's mechanisms in place that if there are issues that we can kind of follow it up, and it's not just resting with the actual team member as well. So I think it's also just with the governance as well, is that the body that is actually sponsoring this recognises that there are sometimes challenges with running these kind of these teams. Yeah.
Okay, and then when you flip it. If you find yourself in a team, what can you do to be a really good team member for your poor project manager who's managing multiple people all across the nation and trying to herd cats? So first of all, be respectful that you're in a team, and that this is a really good opportunity for you to learn some new skills and discover some new working methods. The project manager will probably communicate with you, and it's also important that you reciprocate that back the other way. So try and understand the overall aims and goals of the project yourself. Figure out how your work package or your component of the project aligns with the overall goal of the project as well. Try not to get too focused on your little bit, but see how it fits into the larger picture. Figure out what dependencies are on you and where you might be a potential blocker. And also offer to help other people in the project. That's a really good way to upskill and learn new skills and discover new methodologies and ways of working. Attend the weekly meetings. Go to them. They're there for a reason. And that's a really good opportunity for you to communicate your progress, to explain your decision making, and to give others in the team opportunity to ask questions and get involved in your work and figure out how you work yourself. Because, people are, from my perspective, people have been interested in how we do things in marketing, and the approach that we take is quite different to IT. As we found when we tried to put this presentation together. I wanted to start at the end, and he wanted to start at the start. And look for opportunities to assist your fellow team members. And that's that.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
So we hope that's been useful.
Join me in thanking Sarah and Hamish, but there is time for questions. Does anybody have any questions of either Sarah or Hamish? I've got one. So you talked a lot about people existing in different contexts. So they're existing in this virtual team, but they're still existing within their team within university. Have you got any feedback from the teams about they've actually been able to take some of the way they've worked within the virtual team back into their other context, or brought something they've learned from their other context into the way the virtual team operates?
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a really great example here. So Laura Natana is in our marketing team, and she's been working on a national user support project, marketing that. And I think, it's a really good opportunity because the skills and the work that she's done there translate directly back to URSA. So, if she does like an audience analysis in a certain way, for that particular project, we can use that methodology back at URSA. It's sort of a really nice way of getting having the work funded that you might do yourself already. So I don't know if you...
Yeah, and Michael, I think there's a lot of examples of actually people taking back these kind of methodologies about how you run these projects back to the actual host institution. And we're seeing a capability uplift for all people actually when they're talking about new projects and how we start it up and how we go about that. And I'm not actually saying that this is just from our influence, but I think that's generally across the board. Also, I think, particularly within the user support, the Tier 1 to Tier 3 mechanisms there, it's allowed junior members to actually be trained and actually to sit with more experienced members that won't be available within the host institution. So in that kind of regards there's a training and there's a skill uplift based upon these disparate teams as well. And that's taken back to the institution. So, yeah.
There's a question there. Did you wanna-
It is.
Did you not see the dogs?
Yeah.
In terms of the practical implications, how many times have you had related to the inheritance of staff members? How many times have you had to request or change project members because of
Yep.
certain reasons, and how do you deal with that?
Yep. Yeah, so I've had a project that we've just had to stop work. You know, it had to be that drastic kind of thing that we had three teams, both, you know, one in Brisbane, one in Sydney, and one in in Townsville, and everyone was working towards a different goal. And to actually get enough imprimatur over to actually change that kind of culture, we had to actually kind of put down tools and stop work for a whole week, get everyone together. So, like, there are elements there that if you're not focused and you don't have that communication all happening all the time, it can go actually kind of awry as such. So there's been elements like that.
And in my experience, it's the other way. It's trying to retain project members rather than trying to kick them out. So especially in the research area, projects are funded for very limited time periods, and so, you know, if you've got someone on a 12-month contract, they want job security and they might leave after 9 months. So probably the biggest threat to the Cultures and Community Project is people actually leaving. So, and that sort of happened with our Victorian team already. One of our sort of outreach people has been given an opportunity to go to America to work on our research. So, you know, I'm not, for the sake of 3 months, I'm not going to stop her from doing that.
Yeah.
And
And no, yeah. Sorry.
Thank you. I'll take your question. I'm actually running a distributed team doing some national work at the moment. So
Could have
this has been
presented.
useful- I would love to. This has been useful and affirming for some of the things we're doing. And the people directly in the team that mine know, it's their day. But for me, it's almost discretionary. It's fun. It keeps me alive because it's different and it's contributing something I can see and adore. So the question is this: what advice do you have for people in distributed teams where their contribution to the team is not their day job?
That's a challenge sometimes. Yeah.
But I'd say it was like an opportunity for them. You know, it's a really good opportunity to escape that day job. I've really enjoyed working on national projects. It's a really good form of escapism when things get a bit mundane in your regular environment. You know, I've been in my current job for 7 years, so, you know, these provide really good opportunities to meet new people, gather new skills, do exciting work. So I would say it's an opportunity.
I'd talk to my boss and say, can I build it into my planning for the day?
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. And it's also a lot of work with the supervisor as well, or the management.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got to be ring fenced.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any more questions? Well, thank you very much, Sarah and Hamish. It's been fascinating. I hope you've all taken something away, and they'll be available for questions afterwards.
Thank you, Michael.
Thanks.
Thank you.